Hello and welcome to the Developer Dad podcast. My name is Craig Fisk and I am a developer dad. So the end of the summer holidays is near. We've just got 1 week to go and I can't wait to get back to some kind of normality. I think family life here is in desperate need of getting back to a routine. It's been especially hard this summer holidays with my wife being pregnant. This week, I wanted to try and tackle a subject that I find particularly interesting from a parental sort of view and also from a professional sort of view. And I want to tackle it in a form of a question. That question is, should my child be playing Fortnite? Now, I'm not trying to, in this episode, offer any specific advice other than my own opinions on the matter, which I'm going to be trying to be as factual as possible, not trying to make anyone feel like a bad parent, good parent for doing X, Y, or Z. I'm just trying to give you guys some interesting facts, some interesting food for thought, and that will hopefully help you guys address what is a big subject at the moment, especially for parents with children a little bit older than mine, but I think I've got some unique insights into the subject. So, first of all, I wanted to give some caveats. So, I am a game developer myself. I went to university to study computer games modeling and animation, so that's creating 2D and 3D graphics for games. So I do have a little bit of industry knowledge, and I do know a lot about what kind of goes into the making of these games. So I do have a unique point of view from that point, as well as being a father to a young daughter. That being said, I love video games. Before I became a parent, I played them constantly. They were a huge hobby of mine. Obviously, becoming a parent has meant the amount of time I get for hobbies in general has reduced, but gaming doesn't rate as highly as it used to, as much as I still love it. I do play video games with my daughter. I do have strict rules and guidelines that I enforce around video games with my daughter, which I'll probably go into on another podcast. But this week I just wanted to focus around Fortnite, as it's such a big topic at the moment. So I guess the first thing to do would be to fill in those people that might not know exactly what Fortnite is. They might have heard their kids talking about it. They might already let their children play it, but may not understand exactly what it is. So Fortnite is a online multiplayer game that is available on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, and just recently came to iOS, so iPhones, iPads, etc., and very soon will be coming out on Android as well. And the objective of the game is to be the last man standing. So the game starts off with 100 participants who all fly in on essentially a flying bus over the top of an island that is full of various houses, buildings, etc., that are also filled with various weapons, guns, etc. And at the start of the game, the players all parachute in to whatever point on the map that they wish to, and it then begins a massive scramble to quickly find guns and weapons as well as materials for building with, and then commence eliminating the other players to eventually be the last person standing. So the game forces players together slowly but surely by decreasing the play area. So there's a blue area that circle around the outside of the map that gets increasingly smaller, forcing the players together into a tighter and tighter area until eventually there are just one participant left. So that's the basics of the game. So the game has been immensely popular since its release in July last year, with over 125 million people playing to date, which is just crazy numbers for an online game. But it's no wonder when the game is essentially free to play, which is why I think it's been such a massive success especially with kids, because they don't have to go out and ask their parents whether they can buy the game or whether they can have it bought for them. They can just simply go and download it on their platform of choice, and it's free. So, as a parent, that's kind of both a positive and a negative. Yes, it's great, we don't have to spend more money on games for our kids, but not so great because unless you've got the parental controls set, then you might not even know that they've downloaded the game. So you might be asking, if you don't know necessarily about Fortnite or how these games work, how on earth is the company that made the game making any money if the game is free? So they make money by selling in-game items, in-game customizations for your character, whether they are special dances that you can get your character to do, costumes, visual changes to your weapons, changing the colours, etc. They can all be purchased in-game, and to date, it's estimated that more than $1 billion has been made by the company on in-game purchases alone. So it's clear that it's such a huge part of the game, and one of the big reasons why it's so popular. So, although yes, you can play the game for free, which is great as a parent, players are highly incentivized to spend real-world money on in-game purchases. So I guess that's probably enough of a explainer on what Fortnite is and how the game works. So I wanted to now get to the crux of my question for this week is, should my child be playing Fortnite? So there have been a lot of sensationalist headlines going around recently, and obviously a lot of media attention on the game, including the NSPCC recently issued a warning to parents about Fortnite and how they should get their kids to stay safe and on the internet. So, for those that do not know, all games that are released in Europe and the US have to go through an age rating system. So, in the UK, that is the PEGI or PEGI rating system, and in the US, it's the ESRB ratings. So the PEGI rating for Fortnite is 12, meaning it is not recommended that this game is played by anyone under the age of 12. Now, the reasons cited for this rating by PEGI are due to frequent scenes of mild violence. It is not suitable for persons under the age of 12. So it's up to you as a parent to judge whether that sort of level of violence is acceptable for your child at whatever age. So there is gun violence in the game. It is, I guess, can be considered and is considered by the PEGI ratings board as mild violence due to there being no bloodshed and no sort of gratuitous grotesque kind of violence going on. It is a cartoon-ish style of shooting, but it does involve guns of various different kinds, from pistols to machine guns to shotguns to rocket launchers. They're all there. So it's up to you as a parent, obviously, to decide whether that sort of level of violence, that level of interaction with guns is suitable. But one big caveat with the PEGI and ESRB ratings is that the PEGI rating only takes into account the content in the game and not the interactions and the contact that players might have with other players in the game, including both audio and in text chat. So what you might not know is by default on this game, voice chat is enabled. So that means anyone with a headset that has a microphone on it and is playing the game and is in the same game as your child, they have the ability to speak to them in a completely unfiltered and unsanitized way. There's no profanity filters or anything like that. So obviously you can see how this could potentially be exploited and misused by nefarious users. Or since it's not even necessarily nefarious, it can just be an older person thinking it's funny to swear lots in front of minors, etc., which on the surface isn't particularly nefarious, but is a massive pain in the ass for the parent that's then dealing with their young child that's going around swearing constantly because they heard another older sounding person on a video game doing it and thinks therefore it's acceptable. So the good news about the voice chat, though, is that it can be disabled. It is possible to go into the settings for the game and it can be disabled, as well as it can be disabled using the parental control features on whatever platform that your child is using. However, there is also another form of chat in that there is text chat in the game, which is also on by default and cannot be turned off. So although you may be able to control the voice chat, you can't necessarily control what your child sees in the text chat. So the fact that there is online chat that can't be disabled, as well as the voice chat, plus the fact that the game is free to play, so anyone could be playing it for nothing, is a serious concern that you should be taking into consideration when deciding if your child should be playing Fortnite. So obviously I've highlighted a lot of negative points there, which I think is important for when you're deciding if your child should be playing a game. Not trying to demonize the game in any way. There are lots of other games out there that are an awful lot worse for your child than Fortnite. I don't think Fortnite's a bad game. I don't think it should be avoided in any way. I've played it myself. It's a good game. It's interesting to play with 100 other people. I can understand the appeal. So I don't want to try and scare anyone off from playing it, but I think there are definitely some serious questions that you should be asking yourself when deciding if your child should be allowed to play. So it's not all doom and gloom, and we do have some tools that we can use as parents to create a safer environment for them to play in, including online. So I'm going to use the PS4 as an example. I've kind of dug in to what parental controls are available on the PS4, and I'm quite impressed with what is there and the sort of options that we have to restrict play. So first of all, the most important part is the ability to create parent and child accounts, and obviously you want to be trying to set up your child with a child account, whilst you as a parent have access to the parent account that is locked via password, so the child can't go into your account and start changing with the settings that you've set. So once you've done that, you can then play with all of the various parental controls that are available. So things that you can do include you can restrict the access for that account to contact other PlayStation Network users, which it can be great to restrict who your child can be contacting online. You can also restrict the viewing and sharing of user-generated content. You can set spending limits on the PlayStation Store, so you can completely stop your child from being able to spend any money on the PlayStation Store. So you can really make sure that that free game is free, and you're not going to get any crazy unexpected bills. On top of that, you can set restrictions based on the age ratings for games, Blu-rays, and DVDs. So if your child is under 12, then and you set up these restrictions, then they won't be able to download Fortnite. On top of that, you can also disable the usage of the web browser and the PlayStation VR. You can also disable the creation of new users and guest logins, so your child can't just constantly keep creating new guest logins to then circumvent your parental controls. You can also then set playtime restrictions, so either restrict or do not restrict for certain games and activities, which is great. So if you want to have specific rules saying I want my child to only be able to play for 2 hours every day, then the PlayStation will take care of that. And you can also change how the PlayStation handles if they go over these limits. So it can notify you as a family member, or it can just simply log the child out of the account and they won't be able to play anymore. So these are all incredibly powerful tools. This is just the example for the PlayStation 4, but there are very similar features in the Xbox, the Nintendo Switch, and PC that allow you to restrict these sort of activities. And I think they're an incredibly powerful tool and helpful tool for managing how our kids play games. So I think that's enough video game and Fortnite chat for this week. I hope you guys found that information useful. And if you've got any other questions that you want to ask or want to talk about any of the subjects that I have covered in this podcast, you can contact me via my email, hello@developerdad.co.uk, or you can hit me up on Instagram. I am developer_dad. So finally for this week, I wanted to get into a recommendation. So this week I want to recommend something a bit different, a board game, which I have been playing a lot with my daughter recently. It's a board game called Carcassonne. Now, my daughter is just coming up on 6. She'll be 6 at the end of September, and she's able to grasp this game pretty well, although obviously the full high-level strategies of it that we might be able to come up with as an adult kind of go over her head, but as a game, she is quite happily able to play and able to be competitive, and has beaten me on several occasions. It's a great game. It's a tile-based game where you are essentially building up a map that resembles Renaissance-era France. And you are building towns, you're building roads, you're building monasteries, and you have little men that you place on the board as you build the board up that then score you points. It's a fairly simple game, but there's obviously a lot of strategy there for older players. It's a game that's been around for years and years and years. They've sold over 10 million copies of it. Super popular game. Well recommend getting hold of a copy of it. No matter what age your kids are, I think it can be a great one. And it's a game that I love to play as an adult as well. Okay, I think that's going to about do it for this week. Like I said before, if you want to get in contact with me about anything, you can email the podcast, hello@developerdad.co.uk, or go ahead and follow me on Instagram. I am developer_dad. So until next time, I'll catch you later.